As round one wraps up, what do we know about who got admitted to the very top MBA programs? And what can those of you who are applying in round two or maybe even gearing up for round one this upcoming fall in 2024 learn and use from the success of others? First, let's level set here for a moment. In the previous MBA admission cycle, the 2022-23 one, applications, especially from US candidates, went down. As the news continued to spread, MBA hopefuls are asking, is it easier to go and get into a top MBA program this year? When MBA applications are down, do the doors to the most selective MBA programs open a little bit wider, especially for US candidates? And the answer is not exactly. Even in times when applications are down, the top schools will never lower their standards. So I would call the 23-24 admission cycle easier. All you need to do is browse the online forums like ClearAdmit to see plenty of MBA candidates with formidable statistics and backgrounds get rejected. And now there are indications that MBA applications may have gone up in round one, at least to some of the schools. Recently, when speaking with prospective students and welcoming newly admitted students, Booth and Kellogg in particular talked about significant increases in applications in round one. It's too early to tell if this was just a round one phenomenon, maybe driven by the changes of the test formats, which sometimes are known to pull demand forward. But still, the current business school environment and landscape may present an opportunity. It may be the kind of MBA admissions environment where strong candidates will have stronger odds at higher ranked schools. You still need to be both competitive and compelling and build a strong application. That will never change, even if MBA applications are down. But your chances do become stronger when the competition is a bit less fierce. So who got admitted to the very top schools? The GSB receives roughly 14 applications for each seat in their class. Harvard Business School receives around 9 for each spot. And a very large percentage of these candidates are actually perfectly qualified for admission. In fact, Wharton tells you very specifically that they receive about 6,000 to 7,000 applications in any given year, and that approximately 75 to 80% of all applicants are qualified for admission, and of those, they generally admit about 1,000 candidates for a class of 840 students. So in round one, what differentiated those who got in? As always, one thing remains true of the most selective MBA programs in the world, and that one thing is that there are no random winners in MBA admissions. Every single person I know who got admitted had a strong proof of their ability to succeed academically. Each of them was on a different leadership journey, but they had been intentional and thoughtful about their actions. They knew their values and how they had driven the choices they made along the way. They didn't simply shoot their shot. They shot their best one. Every grand strategy has to eventually devolve to lowly action, Peter Drucker purportedly said. The MBA candidates who got admitted last week, as of the time I'm recording this video, were the ones who didn't waste time daydreaming of how they will be the lucky ones to get selected by the AdCom. They didn't bother asking strangers in anonymous forums to assess their odds. They relied on traction, incremental progress every week to increase their admissions odds. And this brings us to the concept of forging versus scrambling in MBA admissions. As always, it was the people who forged their way to the round one MBA application deadline who faced the most success. The unsuccessful ones were the ones who scrambled and were scattered in their efforts. They often had to delay their application to round two, actually. The round one MBA admits did 3 things particularly well. First, they started preparing for the GMAT or GRE early and had plenty of runway for retakes if needed. From the pool of successful admits I worked with, all were done taking the test at least a couple of months before the deadline. That didn't always mean they got a score that was above the median of their target programs, but they had done their best, and in the weeks before the deadlines, they focused on their MBA application materials. The second thing is that many of them started working with me many months in advance. This meant we had ample time to identify ways for them to bolster their leadership track record even further. It also meant we had a beautiful runway to explore and shape their MBA stories. If you're curious to know how early that work can start, I've already commenced work with round one candidates for fall 2024. The third thing is that all of these candidates had a vision of what kind of person they were going to be 10 years from now. They were able to communicate that vision and how they would show up on campus now and as alums. This point is absolutely critical, but is often overlooked by MBA candidates because in the end, this is what you're selling to the school, not simply who you are now, who you're going to be as an MBA student, an alum, a carrier of the brand for years to come. This vision is also what carries my candidates through when the going gets tough. As one of them put it in an email to me after hitting submit, I feel great about what I submitted, and most importantly, I've actually started to crystallize my thoughts with respect to my next 10-year goal. I'm so appreciative of your exceptional and thoughtful guidance for getting there. But don't mistake this vision for a pipe dream. For the successful admits, it was grounded in their track record, that habit of leadership that Harvard Business School talks about and looks for in MBA candidates. What did these admits write about in their Stanford and Harvard essays? Given how open-ended the GSB and HBS essays are, candidates always want to know what kind of essay they should write. But the fact is that no two HBS or GSB essays are ever alike. The candidates I worked with embraced the difficulty and the messiness of trying to find the most important parts of their backgrounds and the unifying thread that connected them into powerful MBA stories. They knew this was not going to be a paint by numbers job. The strongest MBA stories only come after asking hard questions and accepting the inevitability of running into a few dead ends along the way. As one of my candidates quipped on the day when she received the happy news from Harvard, I can't say that the process wasn't painful at times, but being guided by an expert made a big difference. It resulted in them putting together applications they were proud of and ones that they felt confident about. Applications that, when decisions were released, resulted in the answer is yes email from Harvard. These candidates did not portray perfection. They did not rely on platitudes. They didn't anxiously plaster leadership and impact labels all over their writing and the descriptions of their actions. They let their actions speak for themselves. One consistent thing all successful MBA candidates do is this. There's an unfailing thread I see through the MBA application journeys of the strongest MBA candidates. They surround themselves with resources. They have mentors, peers, managers who support them. They join organizations like Forte or MLT. They tap their alumni network from undergrad. They engage with their target schools. They speak to students and alums. And yes, often they also choose to work with an MBA admissions consultant, not because they're insecure or can't manage the application process on their own, but because they recognize the power and unique value of having a true expert who can guide them through the process. It's not about finding any shortcuts as much as it is finding the long cuts, the places of the MBA application process where you should be dedicating significant effort. It's also about the ability to tackle the myriad decisions that are required as you navigate the MBA admissions process, from choosing the right recommenders to selecting the right vignettes that paint an unforgettable story about you. The power to make a decision and stop second guessing it and instead move on to execution can have a tremendous impact on your ability to navigate the MBA application process successfully and present yourself with confidence in your MBA application materials. Now, I also want to talk about the most difficult fact of MBA admissions. With all this talk about what it takes to be a successful Harvard or Wharton or Stanford admit, I'd be very remiss if I allowed this video to imply that there's some sequence of actions or combination of attributes that guarantee admission to these schools. There isn't. You can be a truly amazing candidate, competitive and compelling, and you might still not get admitted. There will always be more outstanding candidates than there are seats available at the very top MBA programs. So if that happened to you, you're probably asking yourself, where did I go wrong? And the answer very often is you didn't. A deny, especially when it comes from one of the most selective MBA programs out there, is not a verdict on your worth. It's also not an indication that you fell significantly short in any way. As a former dean of MBA admissions, I can tell you one thing with complete confidence. In many, many cases, it's not like the MBA AdCom reviewed your application and issued a hard no. Quite possibly, they found many things about you that they truly admired, but there were many, many other applicants who were extremely strong too. The MBA admissions process is influenced by complex factors outside of your candidacy, the overall applicant pool, the timing of your application, and sometimes luck. So if this happened to you, if you're unsuccessful, my heart goes out to you, but a deny doesn't have to be the end of the road. You can adjust your strategy for round two. You should also know that schools welcome reapplicants. You don't get penalized for being a reapplicant, and you can get admitted the second time around.